For 8 months, I had been Echo 7, fighting beside Princess Nythara, with my species hidden behind sealed armor. And when protocol demanded I remove my helmet to receive the Star of Meridian, I watched 8 months of trust hang in the balance, as my human face was revealed to a room that considered humans inferior. The ceremony hall was filled with soldiers clad in their battle-ready gear. A sea of gray and silver suits moved rigidly, all faces obscured by identical helmets, each marked only with call signs Echo 7, Shadow Delta, Thunder, Kilo. Everyone knew everyone else as the name on a chest plate or shoulder emblem rather than a face. The air buzzed with anticipation. The commander's voice cut through it like ice, sharp and clear. Attention. This assembly is called to honor our finest warrior today. Ethan's heart pounded in his ears. Today was the day he had both anticipated and dreaded since joining Joint Outpost Meridian 8 months ago. I get my Star of Meridian. Commander Nythara stepped forward, a sneering smirk on his masked face that made Ethan's gut twist with premonition. Echo 7, he called out without preamble, for your exceptional valor and leadership in countless missions, you are awarded the highest honor, the Star of Meridian. Ethan's grip tightened around his weapon as nervous sweat beaded along his neck and brow. Protocol demanded that recipients remove their helmets to receive this distinction. He had long prepared himself for today, rehearsing every possible scenario and response, and it felt like a nightmare come true. Protocol requires you, the commander continued with deliberate malice, to reveal yourself. Ethan's hands shook as he reached up to unfasten his helmet seals. 8 months of trust hung in this moment, saving lives together, sharing secrets none had ever heard. With each click and release, every piece of armor that lifted off felt like a betrayal. Echo 7, the commander's voice sliced through the tense silence with mocking triumph. What do you have to hide? Ethan's fingers brushed against his visor. Today, for once in my life, I don't get to choose what they think about me based on merit alone. His heart hammered against his ribs. Echo 7, the commander's voice boomed louder, impatient and cruel. Nythara stood at the front of the assembly 8 months ago. She had been a distant figure of legend. Now he trusted her with his life. She was still as elegant in armor as out luminous skin that seemed to glow faintly in the dim lighting, long silver hair cascading down past delicate shoulders. He hesitated for only a second before pulling off his helmet and revealing himself a human soldier. His brown eyes met hers. She watched him like prey sensing danger. Her face was unreadable, but her gaze lingered too long on his features to be casual. The hall erupted in gasps of disbelief, whispers echoing through the assembled troops. Echo 7 is human. The word seemed charged with accusation and loathing from every direction. Ethan's breath hitched as Commander Nythara's cruel smile widened. He had known all along that I was human, had waited for this moment to expose me. Nythara stared at him, her gaze searching his face with a mix of shock, betrayal, and something else deeper, perhaps curiosity or realization. He couldn't look away from her, the woman who knew him as Echo 7, the partner he trusted with everything yet revealed nothing but competence. The person I fell for without ever seeing their face. Echo 7. Commander Nythara called again, his voice dripping with contempt now that Ethan's true identity was known to all. For today and every day you will earn back your place amongst us, or lose it entirely. Ethan's hands were still shaking. He felt the weight of countless battles fought together in this moment. For 8 months I've hidden from her what she might reject. No, everyone knows my truth. Commander Nythara stepped forward to pin Ethan's metal onto his armor, a sickening smile twisting at every edge. Your species has been given a chance, he sneered, as if there were ever any choice in the matter, before stepping back into the shadows of the assembly hall and leaving Ethan alone once more. Silence filled the room like water after breaking waves. Ethan's breath caught painfully in his throat, air heavy with tension. The soldiers around him watched warily, eyes wide and questioning behind their masks. Only Nythara remained unmoving at the front row, her piercing blue gaze holding Ethan's until he could no longer bear it. Echo 7, She finally spoke softly, yet clearly, over the sudden clamor of murmurs. How her voice was steady despite the myriad emotions swirling within Ethan's breath caught in his throat as he stood alone on the stage, staring back at Nythara through a sea of masks and whispers. The room felt colder than ever before, each gasp and hushed comment piercing him like ice shards. He didn't need to see her reaction. Her eyes held more questions than answers. The commander's sneering voice echoed in his ears. For today and every day, you will earn back your place amongst us, or lose it entirely. Ethan swallowed hard, the metallic taste of bitterness mixing with fear on his tongue. He didn't need time to think, needed time to make amends, if there was any way to do so now. Stepping down from the stage and weaving through the crowd as they parted slightly in shock, Ethan left without a backward glance. The hallway outside was mercifully empty. He hurried toward the observation deck on the far side of the outpost central building, where Nythara might go to think and process. The doors slid open with a hiss when he arrived at the observation deck, revealing stars beyond a sky painted in hues of black and indigo, speckled with the brilliance of distant galaxies. The air was cooler here than anywhere else in the outpost, carrying an eerie tranquility that seemed almost mocking against the chaos within. Nythara stood by one of the windows, her form a silhouette framed by starlight pouring through the glass pane behind her. She hadn't turned to face him yet. He could see only the faint glow of her skin and hair, ethereal strands falling over each other in contrast to the darkened background beyond. 8 months, Ethan said softly from his position right beside her, knowing she'd hear it even if she pretended not to. The silence between them stretched out like a taut string ready to snap at any moment. Yes, her voice was barely more than a whisper, but still cut through him like ice shards breaking off the surface of frozen water. 8 months of fighting beside you, he continued, trusting you, telling you things I have never told anyone. Her posture stiffened slightly as she turned to face him. Ethan felt her piercing blue eyes bore into his soul. The hurt in them was palpable and sharp like a wound that refused to heal. And you are human. Her voice tightened, the words almost accusatory yet tinged with an unspoken sadness he couldn't miss. He didn't defend himself or make excuses. Instead, Ethan met her gaze straight on. Yes, her eyes were wet now, anger and hurt swirling within their depths, as if a storm was brewing inside of her. For 8 months, she'd trusted him completely, shared secrets with him that not even the closest members of her own species knew. That is not fair, she finally spoke through gritted teeth, trying to hold back tears, but failing miserably. He added. He almost laughed at a hollow sound devoid of humor or joy because he agreed wholeheartedly. I know, none of this is fair. A heavy silence hung between them as Ethan stepped closer and reached for her hand. But then his fingers paused midair, the realization dawning on him how much this moment could change everything they'd built together. Pulling back quickly with a sense of loss that felt like a physical blow to his chest, he dropped his hand. I am still the same soldier who pulled you out of that ambush on Kira 4. Ethan's voice broke slightly, as emotion threatened to overwhelm him. The one who stayed awake while you had your fever, because I couldn't bear to leave you. I'm also just a human, but still Echo 7. Nythara stared at him in shock, no longer seeing the masked soldier she knew so well, but a vulnerable man standing before her with nothing left to hide behind. She was quiet for what seemed like an eternity, then she whispered, I need time. Her voice sounded small and fragile compared to its usual strength. Ethan nodded understandingly, though it hurt more than he ever imagined possible. He took another step back, but didn't turn away yet. Couldn't leave until they had something definite between them again, even if that meant waiting an eternity outside this door. I am not transferring, Ethan promised her quietly before continuing. I will not run. There was no going anywhere, no, not when so much of their past 8 months together lay in ruins. He needed to know what she decided about him, and the truths they'd shared, and most importantly if there could ever be more after this. He walked towards the door, then paused briefly once he reached it, turning back one last time. I will be here, Ethan said softly, but firmly, as though planting seeds of hope in barren soil. When you decide what 8 months means to you. Ethan left her alone with those words lingering behind him, like an open wound waiting for closure. 3 days passed in a haze of tension and avoidance. Ethan and Nythara each grappling with their own tumultuous emotions as they refrained from confronting one another directly. The silence between them felt like an unspoken accusation, heavy and palpable despite their best efforts to continue functioning normally. Ethan watched over Nythara during patrols, his movements fluid and watchful, nearly second nature after 8 months of shared combat. He kept a vigilant eye on her, ensuring she was safe, even as he knew the truth might eventually tear them apart completely. The weight of this task pressed down heavily upon him. Every step closer to danger meant one less chance at redemption. On the 3rd day, Commander Nythara saw his opportunity and seized it with venomous intent. As Ethan made a routine visit to the armory to check on maintenance issues, he found himself cornered by the commander and several of his guards blocking all possible escape routes from within. Nythara's sneering voice cut through the air like ice. Echo 7, Commander Nythara began, his eyes narrowing in contempt as they roamed over Ethan's armor. The human hero who fooled us for 8 months. Ethan tensed but remained silent, knowing better than to provoke a confrontation now, unless absolutely necessary. His instincts were telling him that this was just the prelude to something much worse. Nythara continued with cruel satisfaction, evident in his tone. You managed to fool everyone, especially the princess here. She trusted you completely, cared for you deeply. A derisive laugh followed, aimed squarely at Ethan's masked face. And now I am going to enjoy telling her how humans really are. Before Nythara could make good on that promise, his guards lunged forward with weapons drawn and attacked Ethan without warning. Ethan's training kicked in instantly. He fought back fiercely, but was quickly outmatched by the sheer number of attackers surrounding him. You will never get away with this, Commander Nythara sneered triumphantly, as his men pinned down a visibly injured Ethan on the floor of the armory, their weapons pressed against vital points to ensure compliance. I'll tell everyone about your treachery and how you attacked first. His voice dripped with disdain. You proved what humans are: violent, dangerous creatures. With every word more pressure was applied onto him as Nythara raised his weapon towards Ethan's head. The chilling sound of metal sliding from the holster broke through the tension. Nythara stood in the doorway, her full armor gleaming under the dim lights of the armory, and a weapon held firmly with determination etched across every line on her face. Step away from my partner. Nythara froze mid-sentence. All eyes turned towards the Velsaran princess, who had arrived just in time to save Ethan's life once again. She moved with lethal precision, taking out 3 of Nythara's guards before he even managed to react. She stood protectively between them. This human saved my life twice, she declared firmly, as her weapon pressed against Nythara's throat threateningly. He stayed awake while I had a fever for 3 days straight when everyone else ran away and hid. Her voice lowered significantly, filled with raw emotion that even the most hardened soldier could feel. I would have expected nothing less from him, if he were of my own kind. And then, she continued softly, but resolutely, as she looked down at Ethan, whose breath was ragged beneath her gaze. He held the line on Kira 4 when everyone else retreated. Nythara's eyes widened in disbelief before narrowing even further with hatred and fear. Princess, he is human. They are inferior. He attacked us. Nythara's weapon shifted ever so slightly against his throat as she leaned closer to Ethan, who was coughing up blood. Her gaze softened but remained unwaveringly intense. I needed 3 days to think, she said almost tenderly, and his heart hammered painfully in anticipation of her answer, one that would determine their future more than anything else before it ever had. I trusted Echo 7 because I did not know he was human. Her words hung heavily between them like thick fog. You were right, I was prejudiced. Her eyes met his, a mixture of sorrow and something far warmer. She leaned closer until her lips brushed against his masked face, gently, but you gave me 8 months of the best. She took a deep breath before continuing in a voice that trembled ever so slightly with resolve. I am done letting species matter more than what I see between us. Ethan's hand reached up to caress Hirsch's trembling fingers, brushing against her armor lightly. A tear slipped down Nythara's cheek as she leaned over him further, pulling his mask aside tenderly and kissing the human skin beneath it softly. "We need time," she whispered. "Thank you," Ethan whispered after what felt like an eternity of silence between them. Nythara's eyes softened, but she didn't move closer or touch his hand resting on the bed. She merely nodded and walked to the small window in the medical bay, staring out at the stars beyond Meridian's outpost. "You saved my life," she said quietly. After a moment, again, Ethan forced himself into an upright position, wincing as pain shot through him with each movement, but refusing to let it show on his face. He had faced worse in combat. "I am just doing what anyone would have done," he replied, but Nythara shook her head resolutely before turning back towards Ethan's bed. "No one else has ever put themselves between me and danger like that." For the next few days, Ethan's recovery became a ritual. They both adhered to Nythara, visiting every day as if it were routine, but filled with unspoken tension. Each visit was an escape from the harsh reality of their situation. His humanity could no longer be hidden when he received Meridian's highest honor, and protocol demanded him to remove his helmet before all. One morning, while Ethan lay in bed nursing a particularly painful injury, Nythara came into view as if she had not left at all. She pulled the chair beside his cot closer until it scraped against the floor under her weight. "How are you feeling?" Ethan shrugged offhandedly, but knew the question was genuine beneath its casual tone. "Better than I have in a while," he said, offering Nythara a weak smile. She nodded slowly, studying him for several moments before breaking into their usual routine of silence and small talk that seemed to dance around any deeper conversations about what lay ahead. But today felt different. It had become increasingly clear they needed something more than just superficial dialogue or avoidance. "I grew up with immense expectations," Nythara began abruptly one afternoon, her eyes distant as if she was far away in another time and place entirely. "To marry strategically, to forge alliances through political marriages." Ethan listened intently, his fingers tracing the edge of his medical patches subconsciously. "Yet despite all that," she continued softly but firmly, staring directly at him now with an intensity that took Ethan's breath away, "I wanted something more authentic. I wanted to love someone not based on their status or species." Ethan nodded silently in understanding, knowing exactly how it felt to be judged by others before he had a chance to show them his true self. He looked down at her hand, her Velsaran white skin contrasting sharply with the metal of her gauntlets. "When I hid my humanity," he began slowly and thoughtfully, "it was because being human would have been an immediate disqualification for anyone in this galaxy." His eyes met hers, then brown meeting blue across a divide that was only growing smaller by the day. "I feared judgment, prejudice from those who never took the time to see past my armor," Ethan admitted softly. "It's exhausting, living up to others' expectations when you're trying so hard just not be judged." Nythara's gaze softened, and her hand slipped off his, as if she was afraid of touching him too much out of fear that it would break their fragile connection. "And yet here we are," Ethan continued with a small smile, "with nothing but the truth between us." Their eyes locked, an unspoken understanding passing silently through them in those moments. Nythara took a deep breath before leaning forward and placing her hand atop his again gently. "When you take off your helmet tomorrow," she asked quietly, after several long seconds of silence, "what did you expect?" Ethan's fingers tightened around hers as he met her gaze squarely. "I expected to lose everything I built with the person who means most in this world." Nythara's eyes filled with a mix of fear and determination. She squeezed his hand reassuringly before pulling back slightly. "Did you?" she asked softly but firmly. Ethan shook his head slowly, staring at their joined hands, human fingers gripping Velsaran ones tightly together in mutual support. "I do not know yet." With that acknowledgement hanging heavy between them like a silent truth, Nythara leaned forward and kissed him for the first time, not as echo, 7, or Princess Nythara, but as Ethan Vale and her lover. The kiss was soft at first, tentative almost before blossoming into something more profound, a confirmation of what both had feared, losing only.